Hello, Movie Mavens! Welcome back to another video on the B Movies channel. My name is Bailey, and I put the B in movies. I don't know about y'all, but the seasonal depression's hitting a little bit, and I just, I love the holidays, but it's just been one of those weeks where I've just felt kind of meh. And so I saw a quote, I believe it was from Bless This Messy on Instagram, that's been in my head today, and so I just kind of wanted to share it. I know this is a weird way to start off the video, but there was this quote, and it's like, for those, I'm gonna butcher it, but it's like, for those feeling sadness during the holiday season, know that pain and joy can exist at the same time. And so that's how I feel. And so if anyone else feels like that, you're not alone. Definitely feeling that too. I don't know if it's because of my mom. I don't know if it's just this time of the year, I talk about this over my personal blog. But like, this time of the year is just also kind of sad for me. It always has been. And so, to anyone else out there kind of feeling happy about Christmas, but also sad, I see you, I feel you, and we're going to get through it. So, on that note, there couldn't be a rougher segue here. But let's go ahead and dive into the blog roundup. If you are new here, hello, hi. Every week on these videos, we do a blog roundup of all of the pieces that are over on our B Movies blog, which is just bmovies.blog. It's linked in the description box below. And we write pieces every Monday through Friday. We release at 10 a.m. Central Standard Time. And so we just like to do a blog roundup, and then I'm going to do a deep dive on one of our blogs today. So before we get super into it, I goofed last week. I forgot we swapped the Christmas horror blog with the Scooby-Doo blog. So if you went to the blog last week and you're like, girl, there's not a Scooby-Doo, but no, there wasn't a Scooby-Doo blog then. But there is this week. So Monday we talked about Scooby-Doo. This is one, it's like the Brady Bunch piece where it's just something I wanted to talk about. Like, I'm just going to be very honest. But I think you'll still really enjoy it. On Tuesday, we did a Wes Craven spotlight. I got to meet Wes Craven once, and it was incredible. I was barely able to get words out because he's just one of the greats. R.I.P. On Wednesday, we talked about Rankin Bass specials. Those are the stop-motion animation ones. If you're not familiar with what I'm talking about, like Year Without a Santa Claus is Coming to Town, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, they have a very distinct style to them. And I somehow turned it into a piece about my dead mom. So check that out. On Thursday, we talked about concept albums. On an episode of the Broski Report, Brittany Broski gets in to Ethel Cain's concept album, and I was like, this is so fascinating. I didn't know this. Like, I had heard Ethel Cain in passing, but I didn't know all of the lore. Thought it was fascinating, and I was like, let's do a piece on some of my favorite concept albums. So there's everything from Kendrick Lamar to Mountain Goats, and there are just all kinds of fun concept albums over there for you to read about. And then today, we're doing the next edition of Lights, Camera, Albums, which y'all seem to love. It is one of the highest performing blogs, like they're the highest performing blogs. It's one of the highest performing series I've ever done. So y'all really seem to love Lights, Camera, Albums, and I love doing them. They take a lot of work, but y'all love them, I love them, so Elliot loves them, so we'll definitely keep them coming. And today we are doing Billie Eilish's Happier Than Ever. And so we're going to do a little bit of a deep dive on that. And then next up we have the Bite Size Sunday teaser. Again, if you're new here, Bite Size Sundays are Instagram exclusive reviews that are only on the B Movies channel Instagram, which is just the same as our Instagram handle at B Movies channel. And that is where you can see all of them. And Bite Size Sunday reviews, all they are things I want to talk about that I don't quite have enough to say for a full review for the site. But it's just a little review every Sunday, posting around 8 or 9 Central Standard Time. So definitely give our account a follow and be on the lookout. So with that being said, every Friday on YouTube, I give a hint. We don't give a hint anywhere else on Bite Size Sunday. And so the hint for this week's Bite Size Sunday is sometimes you have to make sacrifices to get what you want. Literally. And I'm very excited about this one because this piece of content really took me by surprise about how good it is. So I'm very excited about this one. So just to recap, in the blog roundup this week over on the B Movies blog, the Scooby-Doo piece, For Real This Time, Wes Craven Spotlight, Rankin Bass piece, concept albums, and the latest edition of Lights Camera Albums with Billie Eilish's Happier Than Ever. So for special features, I have several things to talk about today, and I'm very excited. Again, if you're new here, special features, this is reserved for things like updates on horror ARG or analog horror series that we've talked about, new analog horror ARG series. It's just kind of a catch-all for things that we want to talk about on the channel and update the blog later. Things we may never talk about over on the blog, but they're just things I want to talk about, you know, I would say IRL, but I guess video to your eyeballs. So we have a ton of stuff, and I'm very excited. We have a couple reviews. I have a little discussion. We have something about Project Earth, because the finale, which is hopefully not the finale, is coming out soon. And then I have a little bit of a cause that I want to talk about and encourage you to participate in. So before we get to special features, let's go ahead and take a deep dive on this week's edition of Lights Camera Albums with Billie Eilish's Happier Than Ever. So Lights Camera Album is a series that I love doing, if you aren't familiar, where I take an album track by track by track. None, all of this sounds weird. I take a song and I put a movie with it. And so so far we have done Taylor Swift's Folklore, we've done Olivia Rodrigo's Sour, we've done Miley Cyrus's Endless Summer Vacation. We have another Lights Camera Albums coming at you this year, and then I already have one slated for January. So let's just dive into a little bit of why I chose the movie that I did, just a little peek behind the curtain. And so, track 1 on Happier Than Ever is obviously Getting Older, which I paired with Almost Famous. Almost Famous, for those who don't know, that's one of the movies that made me want to be a writer. I did a piece at Hyperreal that I'll link below of like all of the movies that made me want to be a writer. This is one of them. But I see Getting Older from Penny Lane's perspective, because she's starting to get older and understand that it has done all these things for Stillwater, which is the fictional band in Almost Famous, and they just kind of treat her like garbage, and she tries to always have this positive attitude, but at some point just enough is enough. And so I see this as her singing to, I am blanking on his name, it's Patrick Fugit's character, and for some reason it has just escaped me. But I see her singing this to him when he's, like, just talking to her about, like, why do you keep doing this? And what really solidified it for me were these two lines. But next week, I hope I'm somewhere laughing for anyone asking, I promise I'll be fine. Because I just feel like that's so Penny Lane and Fruza Balk and all of the other groupies. So next up we have I Didn't Change My Number. And I thought this was just fun to put with Scream, because, you know, just the concept of Scream being so centered around a phone, and, you know, and in the later editions, text messages, things like that. And so this was just more of a tongue-in-cheek pairing, and I just thought it was very fun. And then next up we have Billy Bossa Nova as Fatal Attraction, and I see Alex kind of singing this about Dan, because she thinks this is going to be like some big illicit affair, and for him it's just a one-night stand. And so I think that it's kind of her explaining all of her actions to Dan. Next up we have My Future is Love Actually. And before I even looked at the lyrics, because just to kind of give you some insight into my process, I listened through to the album, and then I just kind of think through and jot down notes, and then I pull up the lyrics, and I look at the lyrics and listen to the album again while I'm looking at the lyrics, and that's how I decide, and that's how my brain kind of connects the movies with the songs. But before I even looked at the lyrics, when I heard My Future, I was like, this has such a distinct sound of the Love Actually soundtrack. And I watch Love Actually every year. It's probably one of my red flags, but it has that vibe of like The Trouble with Love Is, and just that early 2000s, like The Holiday has it too with that version of Beauty and the Breakdown that's in it. It has that sound and that feel to it. But when I was really looking at the lyrics and listening to it a second time, I was like, oh, this was perfect for Mark and Juliet, because Mark knows nothing will ever come out of this relationship with Juliet. And by relationship, I mean just his feelings for her. But he has to just tell her so that he can get it out and move forward. Next, we have oxytocin. I don't know why that sounds weird when I'm saying it loud. Oxytocin. As Basic Instinct. So this was a really hard song for me to pair. I'm just going to be very honest with y'all. It was the last one. And I kept thinking and thinking and thinking, and then I'm like, oh, Verhoeven. This is Paul Verhoeven. It has that sleaze and that grit to it, and that just oozing sensuality that only he can do. And then it clicked with me. I was like, the club scene from Basic Instinct. Done. So that's how that came about. For Goldwing, I think I immediately thought of Renfield, because I think of him just like trying to warn all of these people about Dracula, and how, oh, sorry, it's Dracula, my bad. I was thinking Renfield as the movie Dracula, not the movie Renfield. That would be a very completely different song. So I just see as Dracula how, Renfield is trying to warn Mina, like, if you succumb to this lust that you have for Dracula, and if you choose to, entertain this idea of choosing a vampiric lifestyle, he is going to get bored with you. And it's just going to be another girl and another girl and another girl. So, Lost Cause, also Showgirls. And I put in the piece, Verhoeven strikes again. This is another one. I love songs that are multifaceted or could work for multiple characters within a film. And so, this could be Nomi singing it to Crystal, Zach singing it to Nomi, Molly could sing it to Nomi. There are so many different angles you could take this, because there are so many people in Showgirls that are terrible. And so I just think that you can choose your own adventure for who's singing this to whom. We have Halley's Comet, which is Only Lovers Left Alive, which is, and I hate to say this, it's the only Jim Jarmusch movie that I like. But I really love Only Lovers Left Alive. And, Adam and Eve are betrothed, they're interwoven, but they rarely come together. And, when Eve goes to see Adam, it's been, a century, I believe. And they have all of these different philosophies that differ from one another. Their relationship is extremely complex, but they still have this love for each other, and, I come around as often as Halley's Comet. It's just the complexity of their love. Not My Responsibility, I put as Dumplin'. I love Dumplin'. It's one of my comfort movies. If you've never seen it on Netflix, it's great. I haven't read the book. I have the book. I haven't read it. But I just think of Willowdean just trying to challenge these societal body standards like Billy is with her monologue. And I remember how prolific it was when the videos got leaked of her doing this monologue at the concert. And I know that Dumplin' at times is a lot more lighthearted than this, but the message is still consistent that women and femme-presenting peeps need to stop being held to impossible body standards. And then Overheated, I put as Devil Wears Prada. And I think that it's sung by Andy because she just becomes so immersed in this world of runway. And there are all of these doors opened for her that she's never considered. And she has this fling with Christian. And she manages somehow to both lose herself and find herself throughout the film. And so I just thought that paired nicely. Everybody Dies is Tuck Everlasting. This book. So I read the book as a kid. And the book tore me up, just ripped me to shreds. It was so depressing. But I remember we watched the movie, the one with Alexis Bledel. And for those who aren't familiar, it's about a family who has essentially discovered the secret to immortality. So one of them falls in love with this mortal girl, and he gives her water from the spring because they have to leave the town because they have to move often, obviously. And he said, I'm going to come back for you and I'll see if you drank it. But she doesn't drink it, and she gives it to this turtle instead. And, she winds up living this long life and has children, and he goes back in her tombstone. She's like 105 years old. And it's like, with Almost Famous, there's one lyric that really just sealed the deal for me, and it was, I just wonder why you'd want to stay if everybody goes. And I just think that's a beautiful line. And, like, more power to if Billy wrote it, Phineas, whoever wrote it, that line is incredible. Your Power as an Education. This one is obviously really heavy if you haven't seen it. Because in the movie in Education, Jenny, who's played by Carey Mulligan, and David, who's played by Peter Sarsgaard, they have a relationship that's not appropriate. And Billy in the song talks about someone older abusing their power by having a relationship with someone much younger. And so it just immediately made me think of an Education. Next up, we have NDA as Perfect Blue, which I'm embarrassed to admit, Perfect Blue. So something you have to understand about me, a lot of anime and, like, Miyazaki films and things like that, those are a big blind spot in my film history. And I'm just now, like, I watched Kiki's Delivery Service 90,000 times as a kid. It was one of my favorite movies as a kid. But I'm just hitting that specific style of, like, horror, anime, Miyazaki films, like, things like that, I'm just hitting. So I just saw Perfect Blue because it just kept popping up. They covered it on Random Number Generator Horror Podcast number 9. It was on The Last Drive. It just, like, kept popping up. And I was like, okay, I have to watch Perfect Blue because, like, the universe is telling me I have to watch this movie. And I guess it was for this piece because, to me, this is so... It's so, I think her name was Mina. She's been exposed to the public for so long, and she's been molded into this perfect image that when she does something to the contrary, like when she takes this very explicit role on a show or in a movie, the public is shocked. And that's what, fully kind of starts off the chain of events of Perfect Blue. And so I think that it ties in well with NDA. Therefore I Am as Bottoms, because Bottoms, it's not, like I say, it's not about the actual storyline of Bottoms, it's just the mentality of female empowerment, queer female empowerment, taking down all these ideas of toxic masculinity by having these satirical male characters. So I just see it as, like, it aligns with PJ and Josie's mentality. Happier Than Ever, it will always be, so it's really synonymous with Do Revenge for me. But so is Olivia Rodrigo's Brutal, and I wrote that piece first. So, if it can't be Do Revenge, I think 10 Things I Hate About You is the next best thing. Because I see Kat singing it to Patrick, kind of like in between the crying sonnet, which always makes me cry. It's like right after she finds out about the deal, but before the crying sonnet. And, because it shows them all across the city together and doing all these things together and sharing all these places together. And I can just see how he would make her hate that place. And last up we have Male Fantasy, which I paired with American Beauty because women and femme-presenting peeps are so often just viewed through the male gaze, and we're expected to behave a certain way that fits into this idealistic image, which this will actually come back here in a second in special features from the reviews I'm doing. And it's like how Mina Suvari is seen by, unfortunately, we're just going to say Lester. I'm not even going to say his name because we all know he's a terrible human being. And it's very icky. And women, especially girls, because for those who don't know, Angela is a teenage girl in the film that he becomes obsessed with. It is one of his daughter's friends. And girls don't just exist for male pleasure, and girls should not exist for male pleasure, period. That should not be a thing. Women don't exist for male pleasure. Girls absolutely shouldn't, especially underage girls. And so I just thought that was a good representation. So, speaking of special features, this ties in nicely. It makes up for my lack of a segue earlier. So, the first thing I have up for us in special features, which again, it's just things I haven't written about yet, I may not ever write about, but I just want to talk about them. So, my review of Poor Things. I loved it. I think it's one of my top 10 favorite movies of the year. I just adored this movie. CW's, TW's up top. Infant death, SA adjacent things, abusive relationships. It's also a very hard R. If you've seen any of his other films, like The Lobster, The Favorite, Killing of a Sacred Deer, Dogtooth, a lot of nudity, a lot of hymns. Just fair warning, hard R. The only big criticism I have is they use the R word in a joke, and I don't really think that was necessary. I don't really know why we ever called people that. I know that, especially as someone who grew up in the early to mid-2000s, like, that was a go-to word and go-to joke in all kinds of movies. But I just watched Just Friends the other day, and I forgot that it's also in that movie. But that's my only big thing, is, like, we could have lived without that. There's no reason it needed to be in there. But I think Poor Things, it's like a mixture of Frankenstein, Barbie, and My Fair Lady. I think it does a wonderful job of addressing a lot of societal issues that women and femme-presenting peeps face in society, because men want us on their terms. If we change, we're no longer desirable. We're supposed to be like these uneducated, helpless beings that are molded into their image. And this movie is all about Emma Stone's character, Bella Baxter, which I agree, this is one of her best performances. I think, hands down, one of her best performances she has ever done. But, I think she's really, like, between this and The Curse, which if you don't watched it, it's so good. It's the Nathan Fielder and Benny Safdie show. It's so good. It's weird, but it's so good. I just think it's wonderful, and she just, like, learns to, like, forge her own path, shows you don't have to do what is expected of you, nor do you have to accept the life that's thrust upon you. I think it's a 10 out of 10. I loved it. And I would highly recommend it. I will say, I was talking about this with someone earlier. If Saltburn was a lot for you, either wait to see Poor Things, or maybe Poor Things might not be for you. Because I know that Saltburn, the big 3 scenes in it, it's more so taboo. But there's a lot of in-your-face stuff. And again, if you don't like... Because see, Yorgos is very hit or miss for me. Like, I love The Lobster. I did not like Killing a Sacred Deer. I thought The Favorite was fine. I love Dogtooth. I feel like for this one, if you don't like The Lobster, I don't think you're going to like this movie. So just keep that in mind. Or, like, again, if Saltburn was a lot for you, this may not be the one for you either. But 10 out of 10 for me, and my top 10 favorites of the year, which that list will be coming out on the B Movies Instagram first. But yeah, so Poor Things, definitely see it. So next up in special features, I want to talk about It's a Wonderful Knife, because that's going to tie into the discussion topic that I have today. So, I know I'm in the minority. I enjoyed It's a Wonderful Knife. I love the little nods to other Christmas movies, like how she gets a pink tracksuit a la The Pink Nightmare from A Christmas Story. Anything with Catherine Isabelle in it is a win for me. For those who don't know, she played Ginger in Ginger Snap. She's Mary in American Mary. She's just a cult queen, and I adore her. I love all the queer themes within this movie, and I thought it was fun. Is it one of the best horror movies I've seen this year? No. But I really didn't mind it, and I have seen a lot of people ripping it apart, which, brings me to my discussion question today in special features, because I think this plays into it. Are we getting to a point where horror movies have to be elevated horror, commentary horror, symbolic horror to be enjoyable and to be critically acclaimed and to be audience acclaimed? Is the traditional slasher dying? I've talked about this in previous pieces, like the one I did for X for Hyperreal that I'll link below. But is the classic slasher dying out? Because when you think about, like, two examples that popped into my head were, like, even Thanksgiving has a lot of commentary on capitalism and consumerism. Even Slaughterhouse has commentary about poaching and animal abuse. Animal aboot? Sorry, you too. And don't get me wrong, I love elevated horror. Some of my favorite horror directors live within that space, like Jordan Peele, one of the greats. Ari Aster, who doesn't want to be considered a horror director, whatever. And then you have movies like The Babadook. You have Talk to Me, which is a lot of symbolic horror, and there's a lot of overarching themes about addiction. You have The Boogeyman, which is about grief. It is the regular slasher on the way out. And this is coming from someone, I love dissecting horror movies. I love looking for symbolism and metaphors. But do we think the traditional slasher's on the way out? And to broaden the discussion, are movies that are made simply for entertainment value on the way out? Like, the prime example I was thinking for this is people have been tearing apart Anyone But You, the upcoming, like, Sydney Sweeney and Glenn Powell movie. And, like, from the beginning, it's been made fun of, even, and I will say, kudos to Nathan Fielder and Emma Stone for doing that promo, that really awkward promo that they did for it, recreating that for The Curse. It was wonderful. And is it just because it's a goofy rom-com? Or are movies like this on the way out? Like, are we going to keep getting movies like Clueless? I love Clueless. Clueless, yes, it's an adaptation of Emma. But there's no deeper meaning in Clueless. Romeo and Michelle's High School Reunion. I love Romeo. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. And, like, obviously there are, like, themes of empowerment, but, like, there's not symbolism. Like, it doesn't represent anything. And so I'm just curious what y'all think about, and franchises like Scream obviously have always commented on this. And, when you get into meta horror, like, there's a whole genre that calls out these very things. But I'm just curious what y'all think. Do you think a just straightforward slasher movie can do as well? Do you think that's why some people are saying this has been a bad year for horror? I'm just really curious to hear what you all think about this. Are just movies for entertainment value on the way out? I just think it's a really interesting topic to think about. So think about that. I probably have ruined some days, and I'm sorry, but just think about that the next time you're watching trailers or watching a movie. Just think about it. Like, the last time you watched a movie, like it's the holiday season, so I'm watching stuff like things like Love Actually and The Holiday, and just think about the last time, like, a movie like that really came out and did well. So there you go. There's a little food for it's been bothering me, so now I'm gonna have it bother all of you. So next up, and last but certainly not least, we have Project Earth. So, before I start, the video that's allegedly the finale is coming out, I think, in 11 days, 10 days, from the day I'm filming. Let me back that up. I'm filming on Monday of this week, so yeah. So, like, 11 days from today, so by the time this video comes out, like, I think a week from the time this video comes out, which is nuts. Which, again, Barry, please make more content, even if it's not Project Earth. You are so talented, my friend. Please make more content. So I decided just to go to the Terra Nova website to just see what was cracking and see if there were any updates, because this week, I'm sure as soon as I upload this video to YouTube, Greylock is going to drop, because Rob Gavigan is teasing that the new Tape 12 is going to be out. So I'm sure that the minute that I get this through all the approvals and everything, I'm going to have to talk about it next week, but it's fine. So I went to look at Terra Nova's website. I also looked at Welcome Home. Clown, there are no holiday updates yet, which, like, obviously take your time, Clown. That's not anything. I'm just saying, no new news on that front either. So I was like, I'll just go look at Terra Nova, because I'm also signed up to Jerry's emails, and I knew that issue 4 of Locked Below had dropped. So the Terra Nova website is down. When you go to it, there's a big warning that it's basically like they're being investigated for crimes against humanity. You can't access the website. The only thing you can access are the Locked Below comics. So, issue 4 has dropped. And if you aren't familiar, they are from Barry's perspective. Barry has to basically write the same story every 24 hours. So in issue 4, he's talking to Scarlet and Henry, who are characters in his story who have seemingly become sentient. And he is telling Scarlet about how he's forced to write the same story every 24 hours, how he didn't know that they were real. And he tries to convince them to finish the story because there's not a lot of time left. But Henry winds up taking the phone away from Scarlet, and he points out that he doesn't trust Barry, and quite frankly thinks little of him, because Barry has treated them as just expendable human beings. And so Barry tells Scarlet and Henry that he can see them through the ice machine, like the TV that has been the centerpiece of Project Earth. And it allows him to briefly take control of their world. However, it's only for a short period of time. And he says it appears to be breaking. So to gain their trust, though, he attempts to bring the character he killed back to life when he made his head explode. And it works. Yeah. So I think this is a pivotal moment in the story, because this means Terra Nova allegedly has the ability to bring the dead back to life, whether Terra Nova is aware of that or not. Which is wild to think about. So shortly after resurrecting that character, I believe his name is Steven, a group of hooded fiends kidnaps all 3 characters as Barry helplessly watches. And, y'all, I think this is a big clue / the key to the end, hopefully not, of Project Earth. I think you should go read this one and the other 3 if you haven't, because the finale, I believe, is next Friday. And this is the only part of the website that's currently accessible. So I think they're going to be super important. So I would definitely recommend, and again, the rest of the website is down, but you can read the Locked Below. And so I would recommend going to read them now in the next few days, because I think they're going to really play a big part in the finale. So that is all I have for you in special features. As always, please follow me on Instagram at Lisa_Frankenstein. And let's rewind that. At Lisa_Frankenstein_. You can follow Elliot on Instagram at reading.with.red. Follow us at bmovies channel on Instagram, same as our YouTube handle. Be sure to subscribe. Be sure to turn on all notifications, because personalized will not notify you necessarily. Be sure to like, again, comment. Do you think the traditional slasher's on the way out? Are you excited for Project Earth? Just whatever. Just a great job. Is wonderful. I will link the pieces I talked about, like that piece on X. The Billie Eilish is Happier Than Ever piece I will link below. I will link Barry's channel below. And yeah, I think that is it for us this week. I know this is a little bit of a shorter video, but we don't really have updates on Rapid Eyes or Midwest Angelic or anything. So we will bring you those updates as soon as we can. And I guess all that's left to do is fade to black.